Psychology deals with the nature of identity. Psychology examines the factors and forces that affect the development and maintenance of personal identity. The study of psychology is designed to help us answer questions like, who am I? Who are you? And how do I understand myself? It has been introduced to the social self, the physical self, the sexual self, the material or economic self, the spiritual self, and the political self. Cyberspace has introduced us to the digital self. The concept of the digital self includes online identity, how we present ourselves and make impressions and interact online. Nowadays, people can create their digital identities by having their own email account, Facebook account, Twitter account, Instagram account, eBay account, and any other accounts. What is the digital self? The digital self is the persona you use when you're online. Some people maintain one or more online identities that are distinct from their real-world selves. Others have a single online self that's more or less the same as the one they inhabit in the real world. Russell Belk's idea of the digital self developed from the original phenomenon of the extended self. Andrew Hill's definition on digital self is the whole process of creating one, mostly crept up on society without any widespread planning. Stephen Handel's definition on the digital self is how we often think and behave online. Tamara J. Hicks defines the digital self as a mask that we put on to engage the technological world. Tim Challis quotes that we are the trailblazers here, learning how to use these incredible world-changing technologies to carry out the commission God has given us. The positive side of the digital self is the extended self. Russell Belk believed that our possessions are a major contributor to and reflection of our identities. The videos, photos, texts, and emails that we create are the memories that we possess in our digital self. Tamara J. Hicks' definition on the digital self is a mask that we put on to engage the technological world. But in reality, we hide our identities to fool others by thinking that we are the ones whom they should trust in our digital self. According to Donald Winnicott, his definition of the digital self can be a false self. It is created to protect the true self from insult and danger in order to engage their decoy selves to manage the day-to-day anxieties and challenges that come before them. In his book, The Next Story, Tim Challis wrote, "If you were born after 1980, you are a digital native. The world as it exists today is the only world you've ever known. You may remember a time when mobile phones were rare, the exception more than the rule, but then again, maybe your memory goes no further than the old flip phones that were all the rage once upon a time. For you, there may be no great or important distinction between life online and offline. Your identity in the digital realm and your identity in the world of flesh and blood are one and the same. You may have different representations of that identity, but you make little distinction between them. You may seamlessly between face-to-face interaction and digital interaction through messaging or email. In fact, you may prefer digital interaction, finding the face-to-face somehow unnatural or intimidating. Your mobile phone is a part of who you are, and without it, you feel like the world is moving on without you. You enjoy television and surfing the web, and especially enjoy doing two or three of these things simultaneously. What are the limitations of interacting with others using just ourselves or identities? Tim Chalice, a popular blogger, has this to say in a recent conference in Quezon City.
I think we're starting to realize that social media has some real limitations built in. Twitter may have doubled the character count from 140 to 280, but I think we're still realizing it is not a very serious medium. It cannot do very serious things. In many ways, it's not a very helpful medium. I think in some ways we're learning that about Facebook as well, that there's certain ways of there's certain media that are helpful for some purposes but not for others. So Twitter, I think, is very helpful in some ways. It's very helpful for sharing news, very helpful for pointing to other things. I don't think it's very helpful for engaging in back and forth debate. I just don't think it's the right medium for that. Right? Not every medium can carry out every purpose. I don't think Twitter is the right medium for great debate. I don't think Instagram is the right medium for theological debate. I really don't think Facebook, which allows longer content, I don't even think that is really a great medium for debate. You know, the more characters you have available to you and the more serious, in a sense, the medium is, probably the more you can do with it. I just think over time we're realizing that really we've got to get back to face-to-face, real conversation with real people where we're acknowledging one another's humanity, we're sharing space, we're reading non-verbal cues, body language, and all of that. So we're really engaging with another person, or going to more thoughtful, thought-out forms of conversation. So maybe that's blogging, maybe that's more book writing, but not where we're just throwing things back and forth thoughtlessly and quickly and without context and without emotion, or without being able to display more about ourselves through emotion. We're just blasting back and forth. I think we're probably going to look back a few years, look back at this era of social media and kind of laugh that we ever tried to do anything serious with it. Maybe social media will develop a little bit more. So I just think as Christians, as we're talking about politics, we're talking about religion, we're talking about other things, theology, things that can be very polarizing, get with other people. You know, don't engage online in things you're not engaging face to face. If a big conversation out there is race right now on the internet, on social media, probably don't talk about it a lot online if you're not talking about it in real life first. Talk to somebody else, engage with that person, and then out of the overflow of that, maybe you've got something to say on social media. But if you're never conversing with somebody of another race in the real world, you probably don't actually have a whole lot to say online. With theology, Reformed theology, great. Find someone in your life that you can talk about with those things. So maybe somebody who's really interested in that theology. You can have a good back and forth, and then maybe you've got something to say online. I just think when we're abstracting these things, when we're living online instead of living in the real world, I just don't know that we're being that helpful. I don't know that we're really able to communicate distinctly Christian ways.
From what I have learned of the digital self, I thought of the following. I should interact with other people face to face and personally. If I don't, then I'm just isolating myself from the real world. Even if I don't have a computer or a phone. I'm a person who can still interact with other people. Even without a digital self, I am still a person who has an identity and I can still build relationships.